Right, let's just talk about it, shall we? Liverpool have just scraped through against a bottom half of the table team. Granted, though, Wolves, and I think we can talk about Wolves in a second, at Anfield, but they've gotten the points. The points on the board is definitely something I care about, obviously, at this point in the season, to keep the pace, to keep the distance between us and essentially Arsenal in the league right now. And I see a lot of Arsenal fans on Twitter. I see a lot of Arsenal fans agitating, talking about narrative, talking about stories that people are telling within the games. But what I really want to talk about is why this team has not performed now. The Everton game I can sort of count as a bit of an anomaly. The Plymouth game I can sort of count as a bit of an anomaly. And actually, the games before that, I thought we were getting towards something that resembled really quite effective football. Even if it wasn't like the most free-flowing stuff, there was some really free-flowing stuff at different points in the game once the team clearly felt a bit more comfortable. And I think there is a bit of a confidence issue within this team right now. Not necessarily every player stricken with confidence issues, but certainly a lot of transitional issues that we've spoken about throughout the season now. Players are not sure what their status is going into next season, players who are still trying to adjust to certain positions or adjust to being a 10 or an 8 or a 6 or 2 8s or 2 6s or a 10 or whatever you want to call it, along with the opposition getting very good at identifying where Liverpool are going to put the ball and then cutting that out, plugging those areas. And I'm telling you now, if Liverpool play like this against Villa and Man City, then they're going to have some real problems. And I anticipate that there will be some problems against Villa and against Man City. Man City coming back into form, obviously getting a very convincing win with the likes of Marmoush. We'll talk about that in another video. And then Villa, obviously a side who are still very good, but have really struggled to get anything together more recently. Liverpool are a team ahead that you want to take and essentially go, yeah, we got this, now we can move on. Liverpool are seen as the kick-on team this season, and they've been seen as the kick-on team for quite some time. They're a big head to get in the Premier League, and it's really important that we play that way, right? Today, I think Anfield expected a win against Wolves, and rightly so. Like, if you're a title-challenging team, then you should be doing that. But this team hasn't stepped up, I've got to admit, over the last 2 games. And I've spoken about this serially in a lot of different match reviews, and I've tried to find a couple of different explanations. The first one is definitely tactical, like I was talking about. They're looking really good at plugging our passing lanes, blocking up the midfield, stopping Liverpool from operating in the way they want to. But secondly, around that, the solutions that we have to that are not working right now. I don't want to say that Alexander-Arnold only looks for Hollywood balls, but there are times where he's looking for the perfect pass when actually there's a very simple, effective pass that moves the ball and puts Liverpool in possession and control rather than in this difficult transitional area. I'd imagine he's told to take some risky passes from time to time, but at the moment I'm not quite sure that we're judging when those risky passes are good and when those risky passes really should probably be safer passes. And that's not just him, but broadly, I think he's the player that gets tasked with that and the player that also takes it upon himself to move Liverpool forward. And at the moment, it's making our lives a little bit more difficult, right? Not only that, but I think oppositions know now where to populate their midfield. Get in the gap between Liverpool's midfield at like that base 2 and the centre-backs, and you'll have some sort of joy, right? I'll talk about the positives in a second. I know there were positives from this game, but I also have to acknowledge in the second half, Liverpool didn't have any shots on target at all. I know we had a penalty, which we were denied in the end, which wasn't really a penalty. I know we had shouts. I know we had counter-attacks, but without any shots on target, without a shot, you can't score. And I think now we've seen serial back-to-back games where we've relied on quite gimme opportunities. I mean, really, both of those goals were relatively soft goals for Wolves to concede. For instance, the one for Luis Diaz was a deflection that got into Luis Diaz's path. Very feasibly, the goalkeeper can, just smother that, and I get that, that's fine. Same really goes for a lot of the opportunities we scored against Everton. They felt like transitional, sort of unusual situations for the opposition to find them in. Maybe that's what we're trying to create, and I get that. I think that's also important to acknowledge here. We're trying to put the opposition on the back foot. We're trying to put them in positions which are uncomfortable for them. But at the moment, we're not being as clinical and as, I want to say, precise as we were just a couple of games ago. And I don't really want to call that sloppiness. Mainly because I don't know, I think it's sloppy, but I don't want to attribute it to tiredness, put it that way. It's sloppy in the sense that we are not taking and moving these opportunities forward well enough. We're not doing it at a frequent enough rate. And the repeatable systems that we have, the idea of getting the ball in, crossed in like that reverse cross, the idea of cutting the ball back, a lot of teams are dealing with that really well. Everton came up with a solution for it. Plymouth essentially came up with a solution for it. Now Wolves have come up with a solution for it. Villa, I can guarantee, will come up with a solution for it. And whilst Man City's midfield certainly isn't Rodri, it's certainly a very simple midfield solution to be able to stop Liverpool from getting those opportunities. And the opportunities that felt so much easier earlier on in the season are certainly not there. Having said that, I still think Salah's a prolific player. And I still think that when he is in games, we look more dangerous. I don't think that's to say that Liverpool look like, I don't think we're in title form is what I describe at the moment. And that's kind of the unfortunate element of it, is we're not peaking at this point in the season. Slot sides apparently tend to play better in the second half of the season than they do in the first. Now, so far, we've actually not seen that. There was the beginning of the second half of the season where Liverpool did look a little bit more cohesive and did look a little bit more together. But after that, it's actually kind of dropped off a cliff, to be honest. I've looked at a lot of these games and thought, why are we letting these opposition in? Game after game after game, where there seem to be simple solutions to a lot of these things, which Slot seems to be wanting the team to do, the team do not seem to be able to act on those things. I'll talk about positives in a second. We wanted to be able to plug up their midfield, bring Endo on, push McAllister downfield, not have someone out there who was a permanent left winger. We wanted someone to rotate out there in that rotational, like that midfield that basically goes, you go forward, I'll go back, you go forward, I'll go back. Use a little bit of all the different legs that we have in midfield. Use Szoboszlai at one point, then push McAllister out there, then back to Szoboszlai. Gravenberch went over to that position at one point. And there were multiple times where we were trying to protect the ball in that area, hook up with Núñez, hook up with anyone who's going through the middle. I'll talk about Núñez on his own in a second. But I think a real issue that we have right now is we are making these tactical rotations, but they aren't necessarily working because the team aren't effectively making them happen. Like, they're not effectively executing them, should we say. Some of that could be tiredness. Some of that could be Liverpool just, they look a little bit bewildered. Bewildered is the wrong word. They look a little bit like they know the opposition is onto something and they're not in the control that they want to be. And that causes a kind of nervousness within the team that, oh, we're not in the place that we want to be. So how are we actually going to solve this problem? It seems to catch on to the fans. You can see the fans are clearly trying to support Liverpool and Anfield at the moment. We won't get that over the next couple of games, right? And I think Liverpool needs to stop this kind of slide towards where we're going at the moment, which necessarily, it's not velocity, it's just speed, right? Because it's frustrating to watch when you know the players are capable of more, but also when you've had such a good run recently, you're only going to get compared to that good run, and people are going to go, well, where is that Liverpool? Why is that Liverpool not playing this way? There are multiple explanations, right? I still think Konate and Van Dijk look very, very solid at the back. They've got a good interchange. I think Robertson and Trent, Robbo is clearly always just on the edge of being just about fit enough. Trent, I don't think is fit enough to play games. He's certainly not fit enough to play full games at the moment, but he's certainly just not fit enough to play games right now. I think there's an underlying thing we'll find out about at the end of the season. I think there is something that we are going to get in the mail later, which, if you win a title, feels great, but if you fall short, feels like a big sacrifice to make for a young career. So, God damn it, Liverpool, you got to win this for him, essentially. Then you got a midfield where Gravenberch has played virtually every game. I think he's actually looked really good. Again, I thought he looked really silky today, cutting a lot of balls out, but there were times where the entirety of Liverpool's midfield too just got cut out by the fact that they had 3 in that area and we had 2, and we had players caught down the field. Some of the similar issues that when we had that little dip earlier in the season, they were the same things that we identified then as well. So they're not unsolvable issues. They're not things that Slot hasn't encountered before within his own sides, which gives me a bit of positivity and a little bit of a more positive outlook, because I think, we know he will know how to solve some of these solutions. But you are looking at players who I think who have played a lot of games, got a lot of minutes in their legs at this point in the season, and some other players coming in at this point who haven't had enough minutes, who weren't able to get into the side because, either they weren't trusted, or it seems quite clear that they aren't up to the same standard that everyone else is. It's well and good calling Wataru Endo a warrior and giving him all of these great titles. I want to support him, want to move him forward. But the point of having an analysis channel is that we talk honestly about some of the weaknesses and some of the performances that we see. Multiple times he did great things. Multiple times he covered. Multiple times when Andy Robertson was gotten past, he was there. When someone else was caught downfield, he was filling in that position. That's exactly the role that we want him in. There are also a couple of times where, because he is very eager to get the ball back, we end up giving away a silly free kick, which could have been something. The wall did its job, but it was very close. We ended up getting a corner after that, and we were nervous for 3 to 6 minutes out on the field. And that was towards the point where I think we're still getting the Everton game. Clearly, this team is still getting the Everton game out of their system. Slot has still got this touchline bang hanging over his head. We can't bring someone like Jones in because he's got that straight red card for actually standing up to a player who's antagonising the fans. I know that's the referee's role and all those things, but I credit him for that. So I'm going to kind of stand by that red card that he got. I think it's worth it. As long as we end up with, the place we want to be, I think it's worth defending your own fans and putting them in the position where you feel like you're playing for them. And I think we've still got a bit of this that we're getting out of our system. Slot feels, the interview I saw with him pre-match where he's talking about that incident, felt a little bit embarrassed. It felt a little bit like he was like, oh yeah, like I let it get the better of me, blah, blah, blah. There are a couple of weird articles where he talked about getting Liverpool being calm and whatever, but he lost his head. The atmosphere in that moment, I feel like managers are very performative. They have to show that they care about the result. They have to show that they're standing up to an authority they don't necessarily agree with in the way that they acted. And it's really only their only time to interact with those people. So, unless Liverpool having meetings with the official in the week after, or they're going into a place where they can go, look, this was a bad decision, this was a bad decision, we're really only going to be in a position where we can voice our displeasure to the officials until, we see them weeks later at any official meetings in that moment. And I get that. That frustration is very palpable. That frustration is something we all feel. And I think saying to Slot, you're a calm character, you have to be calm all the time, misses the point of being a manager and misses the multiple roles and multiple communication avenues that he has. I would say the main issue is it doesn't seem like it's an effective thing to talk to the refs right now. Because even in this game, I've got to admit, there are a few times where players for Wolves are just going down like they've been, they get... and it's like they go over. You can see Liverpool's frustration. They clearly have it in their heads at this point that the tackles that they are making and the intensity with which they come, I'm actually going to check this on my phone now, is being penalised to some extent. And I'm not saying that everyone else is playing particularly well. I think if anything, actually, you'll find that, Arsenal didn't play particularly well yesterday. But it became a lot more of an equal game because of, again, the way that the referee was blowing the whistle at different points. Fouls, I just want to look for tackles. Roughly similar tackles. It's just that Wolves were given only a couple more free kicks. Weirdly, actually, Wolves had only a couple of less fouls than us. It was a much more even game than I actually remember watching it in that way. And, again, you can get lost in the heat of the moment. That's why I do videos the day after. But I actually think Wolves... I'll be honest, I think Wolves definitely played it a lot better than we did, shall we say. And when they did go down, I found it very effective in stopping Liverpool's momentum. They know that Liverpool want to win the ball back and harry them, so they know that one of the best ways to stop that is to go down. It's a very effective way of stopping a press. Teams did it multiple times against Klopp. They've done it. They do it a lot against big teams. Big teams do it against big teams. So if you think big teams do it, small teams are going to do it. But I still feel like, again, I just don't feel like Liverpool are getting those decisions. And actually, if you think about it, I know it says here possession was 50-50. I'm really not sure of that, so I'm going to have to check that on another app. I'm going to have to look at these stats here, wait for it. Possession, both apps are carrying possession was 50-50. I suppose that comes from the overall game. First half, it doesn't feel that way. Liverpool's possession and the control that we had when we were on the ball felt like we were building up in the way that we wanted to, put it that way. But when we got to the final third, it wasn't very effective. Wolves was much more of a transitional play, and they were willing to let us win the ball back and then come back onto them and then go with us. They played us much better than we played them. That's, again, comes down to the fouls, all these different things. Wolves played the game the way that they needed to. And Liverpool, again, we've had this with Klopp as well. I think a lot of any big side, when a team that's not quite as, on paper, as strong as them, they have to play up to them. They have to suck them into playing their game rather than the other way around. Liverpool have not been playing their game in recent games. Wolves sucked into playing that again. Villa will definitely try and suck us into that. And Man City, with the way that Pep plays and the transitions that he's going to want, I think that's going to be a lot more cagey early on, and you'll see the two managers making a lot of adjustments. You'll see the managers kind of observing the other, and then, we'll see. My concern there is Marmoush plays in exactly that area. Villa have a lot of players that play in exactly that area that is right between the centre-back and the central defensive midfielders. And City have a lot of strength there, as do Villa, which I think puts us in a really awkward position because Wolves have very minor amounts of strength there. Obviously, a great individuals who are really good at isolating players, getting past them, and then putting the ball into a difficult area, which is kind of like the Premier League tactic at the moment anyway. So it's not like that's anything special, but they have effective players in those areas, is my point. And at the moment, we don't feel particularly good at blocking any of those lanes up. It feels like we're very much relying on Virgil van Dijk and Konate to kind of come in and intercept a lot of those balls. A lot of the balls, similar to last game, flashing across the area, and we're really left quite open to those opportunities. Again, Alisson today with a great save, which probably would have made it 2-2 in the end. I know that we had that counter-attack the other way, and there was the penalty chance, but it really wasn't a penalty. And unusually, I think Jota should have passed it in that position. Diaz was very much onside. Diaz was very much in a good position, probably there to finish, probably could have made it 2 goals. But, it is what it is. Ultimately, if it had gone 3-1, I don't think we'd have felt quite as worried. But Cunha, with a great moment of class, which made it 2-1, made it feel a little bit more precarious. Anfield got a little bit more worried. I guess the flip side now, if we're going through that evaluation, Liverpool held on to the result, right? First of all, we were worried about another 2-2. There was the ghosts of the Everton game. But at the same time, in the first half, we came out the traps pretty quickly. I think Wolves felt they would have started the game pretty well and pretty evenly with Liverpool. But actually, Liverpool started better than they had the previous couple of games and were at the races at least. Wolves also at the races. We made a lot more of an even game. Then early on, Diaz gets that opportunity, puts it in, and it feels like Liverpool might win by a good few goals. But then Liverpool become a little bit more conservative. We obviously get the penalty, and that's a very effective way of us doing kind of getting into those areas this season. That feels like it's been quite a big thing for us this season, is getting in, cut across the goalkeeper, see what happens there, getting, cut across a player, see what happens there. It's worked quite effectively in winning quite a few opportunities, or that second ball is there and we finish that opportunity. Ultimately, that first half should have put it beyond Wolves. And I think if we'd gone in 3-0 at half time, which really we could and should have, we would have felt the game was beyond Wolves and we could have made our changes. But Wolves were challenging us down the other end, and it wasn't as if we were not, we were not flawless, I think, by any stretch of the imagination. Konate had picked up a yellow, a couple of other players were on the edge of those kind of things. There's too far where we feel like we're second to a lot of things. We were second to everything against Everton, we were second to everything against Wolves. Villa will make, a very hard going of being second to everything there, and City will certainly come out of the trap strong. So entering this period, Liverpool need to buck their ideas up. We cannot scrape through and play in that way against any of the sides we've got coming up. And as much as obviously City have got their second Champions League leg, they look very effective, so maybe they're going into that in a slightly stronger way. It could be that we have a very difficult game midweek against Villa, Man City come off the back of a very good result, or even a disappointing result against Real Madrid, and want to go and do something against Liverpool on the weekend. I think we're going to hit a peak against Man City, where Man City are beginning to peak again this season, and that's going to be probably a shaper for the rest of where our season goes. I will also flag, in the last couple of games, we've played teams who haven't played in a serious amount of time, while we've been playing quite a few back-to-backs. Everton hadn't played for, a week before that? Arsenal hadn't played for 10 days before the game that they just played. Wolves hadn't played for a week before this game. The success that Liverpool have had this season and the back-to-back-to-backs are, at this point, I think, in the season, catching up with us. Now, the concern for me is, and I hate for this to be a negative video, but I kind of, you'll go to a load of other channels and there will be a bunch of praise. I think there should be a bunch of praise for a lot of these Liverpool players. And we will get onto that. I can easily do praise for Liverpool, put it that way. But the concern for me is difficult game, international break, difficult game, break. There is a series of small hurdles that Liverpool need to get over here. And they are big hurdles. They're probably the biggest hurdles we've had to face this season. And we're going into them with a relatively low confidence. And that confidence, I suppose, you can reignite that against a team like Villa. You can reignite that against a team like City. That would certainly be a great feeling. But these will be big shapers for how we enter the rest of the season, especially considering that Arsenal I think Arsenal are going to be chasing us down and trying to chase us down, because if you look at Arsenal's fixtures in the coming days, there are a lot of big... I'll look at Arsenal's coming fixtures, wait for it. Arsenal have got some big matches in the coming weeks that they can easily win. West Ham, easy win. Forest away, tricky. Man United away, I think it's an easy win for Arsenal. Chelsea at home, easy win for Arsenal. Fulham at home, tricky, but easy win for Arsenal at home when they're in form. I know they drew 1-1 earlier on in the season, but I think ultimately they're going to beat Fulham there. Everton away, that is a tricky one. Brentford at home, easy win. Ipswich away, easy win. You can identify a lot of this is basically a very easy second half of the season for Arsenal. There's only a couple of games where you'd say they are even potentially going to drop points. At home to Newcastle, though we don't know where Newcastle will be by then. Away to Liverpool, though we don't know where either team are going to be by then. We'll see if that's kind of a 6-point swing at that point in the season. Everton away and possibly Manchester United away. That's overall 12 points on the line there. But the rest of them, I think if Arsenal are looking like they should be banking these, which really they should be if they're on for a title, that's only really 12 points there. I'm just saying. Now, I understand I've sounded relatively negative for a lot of this video, but actually I think I'm just trying to be realistic in what we see Liverpool as at the moment. And Salah penalty, that was a penalty he scored. It wasn't an open play goal. Maybe we should, there was the great one for Salah earlier. Obviously we should have, that was a great finish, by the way, from Salah, but he was just off. I think Salah is still being prolific, and I want to read this stat out. I think it's certainly worth talking about this Salah stat. Salah is now the leading assister and goal scorer in the Premier League. It's that simple. It's pretty amazing. I think there have been times, obviously the penalties help, but there have been times where we've relied on Salah this season. And the issue is now we're asking to bring these other players in, and I'm not quite sure we've got that shape. Do we want to finish on the negative? Sorry, guys. I want to finish on this point. Liverpool are bringing some very effective players in off the bench. Jota going off for Nunez, I still feel that Nunez doesn't have that fear factor in the Premier League. I still fear that when we bring him on, effectively other teams go, okay, that's all right. He's coming on. That's all good. We'll deal with that. When Jota's on, it feels a little bit more difficult. He feels a little bit more alive. Feels like a little bit more like he's driving. That feels our strongest starting front line is Diaz, possibly Gakpo. I suppose you could go between either of them. But Diaz, Gakpo, Diaz, Jota, Salah, or Gakpo, Jota, Salah. One of those or the other. Still no Chiesa to rotate in, and I realistically don't feel that we can rotate Federico Chiesa in. Do we even have him on the bench today? We did have him on the bench today. Unused sub. Elliott, also an unused sub today. Possibly because we were looking to defend things rather than we were looking to move on, but yeah. By the way, I actually thought Quansah had a pretty good game today, so I will definitely put that in as a positive. I actually thought Bradley looked really good when he came on. I think Nunez, again, had a relatively ghost of a game, and I think actually Endo for Diaz was a smart move. It worked. It's pretty effective, but it tells the players, look, we're looking to batten down the hatches here, and it does invite Wolves onto us, which I think, again, skews some of the analysis, skews some of the bars. Yeah, there's a lot of people, Arsenal fans probably not watching this, who are just tweeting about it, who are then going, oh, Liverpool look like they're under pressure due to that game swing thing, or the attacking whatever graph that is, right? I still don't feel like we have the fear factor off the bench. I think Chiesa was meant to come in and be some of that. I think Elliott is meant to be some of that. But all four of those guys don't bring a fear factor to the game as subs. Quansah, you could argue like for like because it's a centre-back, but really, Konate is our strongest centre-back partner for Virgil van Dijk. Bradley takes away the element of Alexander-Arnold, but brings that driving run, and I think he's probably the one I worry most about when he comes on in terms of if I was the opposition. Nunez on for Jota, I don't think the opposition look at that and quake in their boots. I think we had that point, by the way, guys, earlier in the season where it was like, oh, he's coming on. He'll grab us a goal. That happened against Brentford, but it now hasn't happened in a serious amount of games where if I effectively look at what Nunez has done in recent games, I just need to look at his matches. Where are his matches? Let's just go to view player details, matches. Nunez got 2 goals against Brentford, an assist against Accrington, a goal against Southampton in the EFL Cup, an assist against in the 2-2 against Fulham, Yellow cards were more prevalent for a while. A goal against Villa, encouraging. Very encouraging. I've got to admit, I think we got away with it at Anfield against Villa earlier on in the season. And we were a lot more confident at that point. That was the run that Robbie identified on AFTV. Assisting against Arsenal, so credit to the kid. But it's not so much that I'm just saying he's not effective at all. Although in recent games, I really don't feel that there really hasn't been that much. So a couple of touches off. I've got to admit today, I really enjoyed Szoboszlai's input. Szoboszlai's little touches around the corner, the little give and goes that he has, the little interchange that Szoboszlai has, I want to see more of that. It's just that it tends to be the pass or the decision we make immediately after that Szoboszlai pass that makes a problem for us, or just doesn't push the move forward in the way that we need to. Either get pushed too wide or we get pushed through the middle and then our options get cut off out wide. And that can be a little bit frustrating, to be honest. Like I say, I think Wolves cut off a lot of those passing lanes and really plugged the midfield. That's where you want Trent, it's where you want Robbo to step up. They've not been doing that in the last few games. It's where you need Salah and Gakpo to pull the opposition apart so we can get into the middle like we did against Everton. We only need a couple of these moments. I think people are going to focus, by the way, in the press on low amount of chances, which I think is fair enough. But also, you know, as long as we're scoring those chances, then I would feel better about that. And Wolves basically playing their way back into the game, being allowed to play their way back into the game. I feel like this has been quite a negative review, so I would have liked to do a more positive one, but I want it to be realistic going into these next few games, if I'm honest. Liverpool haven't been the team that they need to be in these last few games, and they need to be that good team against Villa and City, because, guys, look at these games to come. Look at the matches that Liverpool have to come in these coming weeks. Villa, City, Newcastle. Little break. So Villa, City, Newcastle. Between those games, we have 4 days, 3 days. And today is the 16th. Yeah. So we have 3 days, 4 days, 3 days. That is some run. That really is some run. This is the test that we will be presented with as if you get through this, I think, well done, you got your 50-meter badge. A lot of people aren't going to want to hear I don't think it is moaning, but a lot of people aren't going to want to hear a negative review like this. So hopefully, guys, you get where I'm coming from. Hopefully. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. I would love to hear more of your opinions. A couple of people very upset about the transfer video, by the way, that I did. I'm just going to light myself up just ever so slightly. Just the other day about where we were going in the off-season. I wonder if there is a little bit of a focus, a negative focus around the team at the moment about what's coming. And with all this transition at Liverpool at the moment, whether that is having a negative impact on the side. I think that would be fair, by the way. I'm not saying that they have to just completely block out all the noise around them. I think that would probably be very fair. I just don't think a fan-run channel necessarily is the main contributor, but maybe some other people watch it and then think, oh, write an article off the back of that or whatever. So maybe I need to stop with that, especially, but again, guys, you gotta run a channel. We've got to have some conversations. Let me know, what would you like to see more of on the channel? Do you want to see more tactical analysis? Do you want to see more breakdown? Do you want to see more breakdowns? Because the transfer mill never really stops. And it's quite fun, obviously, as a video. It's like a theory. It's just a bit of a thought exercise to do some of these. But I imagine also some people feel like that takes away from their confidence or their investment in the current players. So let me know. I'd love to know what you guys think. Sun's really gone down in this time out, which makes my video quite dark now. Anyway, I will chat to you in a little while. I'll see you tomorrow with a little bit more analysis, and I'll see you later. Much love. Bye.